Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. This one is going to be all about a little experiment I'm running to get myself some newfound gains, and that is going to be my experimentation with Nucleus overload. So today's video is going to go through what Nucleus overload is, how I am personally implementing it, how you can implement it yourself, any concerns, any risks, and how I found it so far. So we are going to get into that, but before we do, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, give the video a thumbs up. It all helps the algorithm, because you all know that the algorithm has absolutely sucked dick lately. And also, if you're interested in online coaching to get yourself some gains, hit the top link in my description. You can contact me directly by emailing ashmaypt@gmail.com. Other than that, let's get into it. So the first thing to discuss is what is Nucleus overload training, and essentially this is an form of training that is extremely high frequency, extremely high volume, and extremely high intensity. And that's pretty crazy, because normally a program is one or the other. It's high intensity, or it's high volume, or it's high frequency. This is all of them together. So it's like the ultimate bro kind of training. You are training most, if not every single day, with loads of sets, all of those sets being to failure. And it is typically going to be used for small, resilient, notoriously hard to grow muscle groups. So forearms, abs, calves, biceps are probably the four main ones, but I've also seen it used and heard success stories for triceps, for lats, for hamstrings, for delts, all those kind of things. So yeah, it can be used for any muscle group, but primarily focused on those little stubborn ones that you hear people complain about and say that it's genetics. This was a form of training that was popularized, or I think actually created, by Team 3D Alpha. I don't actually know too much about them, but they popularized or found or created or whatever this style of training, and since then it's taken on various forms from other content creators as well, but they all follow a general kind of pattern. And that pattern is that you are training that muscle group every single day, or nearly every single day, with sets to failure. You do this for 4 to 5 weeks, and then you do a complete period off. So it's essentially short-term overtraining / overreaching, followed by detraining, so time off of training that muscle entirely, and then you just repeat that process. The concept here is that by doing that, you basically wake up and create new satellite cells, which in turn have new nuclei, and then that allows you to build more new muscle that you wouldn't have even have the possibility to grow beforehand, because those nuclei weren't available to build muscle. I'm not really that sciencey, but I think that's how it works. Then during those periods of detraining, those nuclei don't go away, so you're essentially building yourself permanent muscle, or nuclei that are there permanently to maintain or develop muscle in the future. This form of training also makes use of something called the repeated bout effect. So essentially, when you start it, you're going to be super sore because you're training something, hammering it every single day. But the repeated bout effect is essentially your body getting used to this soreness to the point where you don't get sore anymore, and that allows you to hammer the muscle even more. So by combining all of these things, you can just smash a single resilient, stubborn muscle group, then take some time off, and apparently the muscle blows up. Now, this style of training never really picked up, not at least in my time in the fitness industry. It definitely got spoken about a little bit, and it's been spoken about a little bit more lately by some guys that I follow, like Jeffrey Verity Schofield and Natural Hypertrophy, but overall it never blew up. So maybe that's because it's ineffective, maybe it's because it's too extreme, who knows? But that is what it is. The next thing I wanted to touch on is there any evidence to this working? Because if you follow the channel, you know that I'm a science-based, evidence-based guy. I like to know the ins and outs of all this kind of stuff, and most of what I do is very evidence, science-based. So is there anything supporting this? Not really. So we have a few rodent studies which show that in rats, massively overworking a muscle and then detraining it resulted in this satellite cell activation and muscle nuclei creation, but we have no direct evidence in humans. So just because it works in rodents, that does not mean that it will translate over to humans in any way. So it's really a shot in the dark. We do have some studies around supercompensation and short-term overreaching followed by deload periods. leading to better muscle growth in the long run. However, they were not following a protocol anywhere near this, and those studies are quite conflicting in terms of their evidence, so I wouldn't say that they really strongly support this either. So in terms of scientific evidence, there's very, very little to support this style of training. What we do have, however, is a lot of anecdotes and a lot of common sense. So if you think about it, people that are blue collar workers, they are using a hammer and a wrench all day. We've all seen them. They aren't muscular guys. They usually have a beer belly and they're overweight, but they have these ripped forearms from when they are using them all day long. Or you've got the obese person with giant calves because every step they take is like a 300-pound calf raise. You've got boxers with these giant shoulders from the millions of punches they've thrown. Ballerinas again with huge calves because they're on their tiptoes all day. It makes sense that if you are absolutely pounding a muscle group over and over again, day in, day out, that the body is going to adapt. The reason we grow muscle is because we're telling the body that the body needs that muscle there. And what better way to tell it we need muscle quickly than pounding it every single day, right? So in terms of anecdote and common sense, theoretically, this style of training absolutely makes sense. So now I'm going to break down exactly how I am personally implementing Nucleus overload. It might be a little bit different to what you've heard before. I basically picked up a few things from a few recommendations from Team 3D Alpha, a few from Natural Hypertrophy, a few from other sources, and tied together what I thought was the best bet. So this is how I'm doing it. I am training my forearms. That is the muscle group I am using for this experiment. And I'm training them every single day of the week, 7 days a week. That is how many days are in a week. Every single day, I'm doing 5 sets of forearms with 20 to 30 seconds rest in between. Those sets are all between 10 and 30 reps. My first set will usually be 25 to 30-ish, and then because of the short rest periods, it quickly drops down closer to that 10 rep. Every single set is taken to failure, or, this burns so much that I can't carry on. I'm repeating this every single week for 5 weeks. That is how long my mesocycles are. And then I will be completely detraining them, so completely stopping that training for 1 week. And that will be a 6-week block of Nucleus overload training for my forearms. In terms of exercise selection, I have 7 of my favorite forearm isolation exercises, and I am essentially picking and choosing whichever one I fancy on that day. I have a running log of all those exercises, and each time I do them, I am trying to beat the last time I did them in terms of reps and or weight, but I am basically picking and choosing on the day which I feel like, and I'm just tagging it onto the end of my workouts. Whether I've trained legs, whether I've trained push, pull, whatever it is, I do this right at the end. And the beauty of it is, it literally takes 5 minutes because 5 sets with 20-second rest in between does not take long. So that is how I'm implementing Nucleus overload training, and the way I will determine whether it is effective or not is if my damn forearms grow, because I have tried basically everything in the past to grow my forearms. I started off by not training them at all, and guess what? They didn't grow. So I started training them with straight sets 2 to 3 times a week, then worked up to 4 times a week with straight sets. They didn't really grow that I could tell. I tried doing 2, 3, 4 days a week with drop sets, myo reps, that kind of stuff. They didn't grow. So this is like a last ditch attempt for me. I'm absolutely pounding them with volume. They can take it. It hasn't affected my other training, which we'll get into in a minute. But if they don't grow from this, then they are not going to grow from anything. And then cool beans, I won't have to do boring ass forearm training anymore. So I'll just stop training them and accept that I'm doomed to small forearms forever. I have measured my forearms before starting this. I will then measure them every 6-week block. And I'm going to try this, provided nothing negative happens, for at least 3 blocks. So we're looking at an 18-week training period. At the end of that, I will decide whether I've seen growth. That sounds like a long time, but the thing is, when you are looking at small circumferences like the forearm is, a 1 millimeter difference could take 3 months, 4 months to show itself. So that is why I'm going for a long period of time. The actual reasons that I'm deciding to implement this beyond just last-ditch attempt and desperation to grow my forearms. One is just curiosity. I've known about nucleus overload training for a very long time, and I've heard people like natural hypertrophy say that it transformed a certain body part of theirs. I'm like, well, I'd quite like my forearms to be transformed. So, the curious trainer, the bro in me, if you want to put it that way, just wants to try this. And my forearms weren't growing before, so there's no harm. It's not like I'm going to stop growing something that wasn't already growing. As long as I don't get any injuries, there's no harm in trying this. It's 5 minutes a day, and it's an experience that I can then pass on to clients that might be going through the same issues. So, yeah, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it works, amazing. I can then try it on other muscle groups that are stubborn for me, like my damn biceps, and then I can share it with clients. So yeah, that is one of the main reasons I'm trying it. Also, just because it's quite fun. It's fun to try new things. I've been training for 7 years, so by now, anything that's new and novel is exciting. So this is something that I'm looking forward to finding the outcome of. And then the last reason I'm trying it is it just kind of makes sense. Like I said, common sense wise, absolutely pounding a muscle group like the forearms that can take being pounded, that should make them grow. So we'll find out, I guess. Then the last thing I wanted to touch on with this video is the general and specifically my concerns going into this. And that first one is going to be injury, because the thing is, when you are doing something with high intensity, high volume every single day, there is definitely a potential for overuse, especially with something like the forearms, which are prone to elbow tendinopathy. So tennis or golfer's elbow, that is not something I want to get. As a lifter, getting tennis elbow or golf elbow can be really, really bad. So if I start feeling any signs of dodginess in my elbows from this repetitive overuse, or my wrists for that matter, I will be giving it a break, because it is not worth pushing through that. So that is definitely one concern: injury, overuse, all of that kind of stuff. The way to kind of avoid this is to use various exercises rather than doing the same forearm exercise every single day. By having 7 different variations, it will hit things all slightly differently and hopefully be a bit more gentle on my forearms. Also, by using those higher rep ranges, it will be kinder, because you're not using such heavy absolute loads. It will be more joint friendly. Then the only other concern really, is interference with other muscle groups. So people might think, well, if your forearms are being trained every single day, is that not going to affect your back training? And the answer is no. I can tell you that after 3 weeks of doing it, that's how long I've been doing it now, it hasn't affected my back training at all. Even when my forearms were sore in the first week, because I wear straps, it wasn't an issue. I hardly even felt them. Yes, I sometimes felt some soreness, but I wasn't any weaker in my pulling movements. So it didn't interfere in that sense, and it doesn't interfere during the session, because I do it at the end of the session, and your forearms recover so quickly that you could train them again later that day, let alone the next day. So it hasn't interfered with any other training as far as I can tell at all. So honestly, provided I stay injury free, there's nothing to lose by trying this that I can tell. So like I said, I'm 3 weeks into this experiment now, and I will be running it for 18 total, and that is when I will feed back to you guys. But if at the end of this first 6-week block I have some cool results, I'll definitely be sharing that with you. If you are trying something similar or being inspired to try something similar, let me know in the comment section below. And if you want some more information or guidance on how you can try something like this yourself, please do shoot me an email, ashmaypt@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to give you some more advice. You can also speak to me there about online coaching, or the top link in my description will take you to a link where you can sign up, show your interest, have a chat with me to discuss the online coaching services that I offer. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit the little bell icon, because then you'll actually know when I've posted a video, because YouTube doesn't want to tell people anymore because it hates content creators. Leave a comment, all of that cool stuff. Thank you for watching. Until next one, see you later, guys.